Welcome. I am Jenny Lynn McKinnon with Imagine Your Life with Jenny Lynn. I am your host, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is human connection, the power of a hug, the power of a kiss. What is all that about? What does even human connection in eye contact, and what about brushing up against somebody at the grocery store, even in a friendly way with a stranger? Does it matter? What's important about human connection? That's the topic that we're going to be exploring today. And I want to start out with not only human connection, but the power of love and the power of a kiss and that daily connection. Because love is all around us. Today is March and it's springtime, and you can look out in the fields, and my horses are active, and my there's baby calves being born, little chicks. You walk in the grocery store, go down the candy aisle, and you can smell the aroma of chocolate bunnies, because love feels like it's everywhere in the air. But is it in your heart? Is it where it really counts? For me, I'm number 7 of 9 children. And growing up, I observed the modeling of my parents. Now, they had this morning ritual, and every morning, as my dad would go to work, and he worked the place called Thigh Call at the time, and it was about an hour plus away from our house. So he had quite a commute, and he would carpool. So he'd leave early in the morning, between 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I just remember as a little girl watching my mom. She would have my dad's lunch, stand by the door, and as my dad would rush out the door, he would grab his lunch on his way to work. And he would always give her a kiss and leave her a kiss on her cheek. Well, I just thought that was normal. And then as I grew up, I learned that that wasn't always the case. So early in my parents' marriage, they lived in a small town, Mendon, Utah, had several young children. My dad starts working, and he's getting ready for work one morning, really busy. And my mom's standing at the door with his lunch ready to go. And my dad's hearing the carpool honking the horn, and he runs out the door, snatches the lunch. And as my mother leans in for a kiss, he says to her, "Consider yourself as already having been kissed," and proceeded to run out the door to his carpool. Well, my mother was very wise in her response. And that night, when my dad got home from work, the house was silent, and the aroma of roast beef filled the air. It smelled so good. And he was so anticipating a good dinner. And he walked into the kitchen. The table was set beautifully. And there's a roasting pan in the middle of the table. And he goes over to the table and he picks up the roasting pan, and it's strangely cold. And as he lifts the lid, there is nothing. And at that moment, my mother walks into the room, and he looks at her surprised. "What's for dinner?" And she says to him, "Consider yourself as having already eaten," and turned and waltzed out the door. Now, of course, my father eventually got dinner, but that little ritual, the message, the point had been given, the message taken, And never again did my father leave the house without leaving a kiss upon my mother's lips or her cheek. And that's what I grew up with. I thought it was just normal. Well, on my journey, when I was 19 years old, I went to Jerusalem, Israel. And while there, I was a student at BYU and I met my husband there. And we weren't allowed to date during we were there for religious studies and Middle Eastern studies. As part of our contract in being there, we were not to date or show affection in any way within the culture, right? So we became just very good friends and study partners. And then when we got home, we were both students at Utah State University, and we continued our courtship or started our courtship. And after several drama-filled months of romantic entourage, my husband finally proposed. And after the third time, I finally said yes. And now, 6 kids later, 2 grandkids, more expected. We've had a very strong, wonderful marriage. And we started and carried over this tradition into our relationship early in our marriage of my husband always not leaving the house without giving me a kiss. And it continues today. And it's been a very important key and factor in our sustaining and working through the hard days, right? Because you don't be married for 35 years without having some hard days and hard times in relationships. And so, how do you keep that sustained relationship going? Well, I will tell you that the psychology today, they've done some studies, and they did a study on hugs. And in that study on hugs, they found that there were actually 4 really important things and elements to just a hug, a daily hug. I'm going to get back to telling you more about the kiss, but with just a hug. So even they found, and they did these studies with people and very scientific, right? Well, they found that just a simple hug would decrease cortisol levels, which is the stress hormones. And so it would relieve stress. But not only that, they found that if you have at least a 5-second hug, you're releasing dopamine from the brain, which calms the body and leaves you feeling good long after the hugger has passed and left. And it builds and sustains relationships. They also tested a 10-second hug. And unless those kind of an affectionate thing um, wasn't really necessary, unless you're wanting to be more affectionate with that person. And then they also looked at the duration of the hug matters, increases your mood, and they found that hugs improve health and longevity. So they took 20,000 couples and these couples are not even couples, to 20,000 people that were 65 years and over. And they asked them how often they would get a hug. They could do rarely, occasionally, daily, always available. Someone's always available for a hug. And they found that people that got a hug at least occasionally got a hug, not even every day, that they had healthier lives and they were happier. Now, they also tested, and during COVID, that's when all of this hugging, like people they couldn't connect, right? You can't go out, don't breathe on your neighbor, don't get too close, don't socialize. Like, let's all be afraid of each other. It's hogwash. Though COVID was a real thing, and we all went through it, and we all were careful, and and I and there's some bad, sad things through COVID. I'm a nurse. I There were some sad things through COVID. How do we get through that? The saddest thing of all was in the nursing homes. People died because they were so sad. Their families couldn't come see them anymore. And as nurses in the nursing homes, you know what? We became professional huggers to just hug and touch. It made a huge difference to those people. And it was a hard time for everyone. And that's what opened up this more research on, let's look at the power of hugs and human connection and why is it important and why does it matter? So if a simple hug can just calm our stress hormones, and they found that you can even just hug yourself. Oh, just give yourself a hug, a pat on the back once in a while. Even that is enough for your brain to release those stress hormones that calm, the dopamine, the endorphins, the feel good feelings, which then that leads me to the power of a kiss. Because when you kiss someone, and they found, like researchers did this, they map in somebody's brain while they I think I would have liked to have been part of that study while they were being kissed. And what they found was that not a simple peck on the cheek, but a 6 second kiss releases oxytocin from the brain. Oxytocin, you ever heard of oxycodone? That's a pain pill. Oxytocin is that feel good chemical in the brain that stops pain, emotional pain, and physical pain. It washes the body with a feeling of euphoria. I mean, that's why we have drug addicts that crave oxytocin. They're searching for that download from their brain when they have it already inside them. They just need to activate it, or need to activate it themselves with a hug, or human connection, and reach out, start hugging people. And then you have this download of oxytocin. And it's nice that we have a backup, that if you're not comfortable with, and you don't have somebody that you can give a 6 second hug or 6 second kiss to for that oxytocin and chemical dump in your brain to feel good all over, that stays with you. Sometimes not just for a day, sometimes for many days and months, and carry the memory of that kiss. And then just the memory of the kiss. Some of you had had kisses like that. Can be enough. But if you don't have that in your life, then hug. Begin creating that connection. Hug yourself every day. Intentionally love yourself. Give yourself hugs. Create that release from the brain, that feel-good chemical. Release those stress hormones. Know that you're okay. And you know there's a great commandment in the Bible that says, It's the first and great commandment. You should love your God and love your neighbor as you love yourself. So, who are we supposed to love first? We love God, but we have to love ourselves before we can love our neighbors. And so, as you love your neighbor as yourself, that's a two-way street. Go out and find somebody to serve. Go teach. Go share. Hug a child. I hope you have a child in your life that you can hug. Go volunteer. Go volunteer in an elderly care center or a senior center in your town or your village. And know that there is human connection everywhere. And we need that for ourselves. It's like a drug. It's the best drug. Who knew that a simple hug can be a drug that can help and release from our brains? You know, our brains are just chemical factories. That's what they are. That's what it is. And when we give a hug and we get a dopamine release that relieves those stress hormones and oh, everything's good. Or we get a kiss and we get oxytocin. That's why we feel so good. So good. Now I want to tell you about a kiss that I had. And this was the first time that my husband kissed me. Like I said, we met in Jerusalem, Israel. We came home, we were courting, been on a couple of dates, but we hadn't crossed that line. He hadn't kissed me yet. Now, I'd kissed lots of boys at the doorstep, and obviously none of them had really stayed around. At least I didn't let them stay around very long. So I wasn't a big kisser makeout person on the doorstep. And this relationship was really important to me. I didn't want just a makeout session. This man, I knew he was different, and he was my friend. And I developed a strong friendship with him before I ever fell in love with him. But I knew that I really liked him and I really wanted to respect him. And he was wanting to respect me. And yet we're wanting to take the relationship further, right? So we'd been to this homecoming dance at Utah State University. And he brings me home. And at the doorstep, you know what he did? He leaned in, or I leaned in for a kiss. And guess what? He kissed me on my cheek. Sweetest kiss ever. And when he kissed me on my cheek, the static electricity shocked me through my whole body. And I'm sure my hair was standing up, my eyes, like I just walked in the house, and my sister was with me at the time. And she just looked at me and said, "Oh, Jenny, you're a goner. You're going to marry that man." And all I could say very dreamily was, "Ah, I hope so." And I went to bed a very happy girl. Well, obviously, been married for 35 years, and I still remember the power of that kiss and the electrical energy that was in that very simple kiss on my cheek. That kiss that showed respect, that showed thank you for a great evening and being a friend, and also an anticipation that there's more to come. Someday, perhaps they'll make a movie about us, or perhaps they already have. I love a good chick flick. And why do we love a good chick flick? Because it brings up all those memories or hopes and dreams that we have for ourselves, and so it's just good. Anyway, and sometimes they cry, and sometimes they're happy, and sometimes they're sad, and it's all good. But that was my crazy relationship. So the power of a kiss, the power of a hug, that they said, and scientists, they've mapped this out. 5-second hug creates a dopamine release that then calms stress. You want your kids, you want your teenager to calm down? Can give them a hug. You know what? With my teenage boys, I was a teenage mom, and I had 3 girls, 3 boys. So my teenage boys, they're not into hugging their mom. Like they turn, 13, boo, no mom. But just by, we'd be working in the kitchen and I just bump them, you know? And I, I just tease them and poke. And then would be a friendly wrestle real quick. They can wrestle with their mom, but yeah, not so cool to hug your mom when you're a 13-year-old boy. So moms take that step and bump them in the kitchen and just put your arm around them and that friendly pat, because they need it more than ever at that time. And dads, that's why it's important for you to go out and play ball and wrestle with your boys, because they need that human connection. And wrestling, boy, I love the sport of wrestling for my boys. And if it'd been available when I was when I was a teenager to do girls wrestling, I would have done it. But it wasn't a popular thing, and I was much more into, in fact, it wasn't even a thing. It was illegal. We didn't have girls wrestling. And now we do. And now we have girls teams where girls aren't wrestling boys, and boys aren't wrestling girls. So there's balance and that anyway, but that human connection, that's what this show is about. Human connection. So hug somebody today. Hug yourself today. And know that just hugging yourself creates that release, that dopamine, and can just bond and create that connection. And it's important and it matters. And you can get the same dopamine release from your brain as if somebody else hugged you, as if you hug and love yourself. Because what is the third commandment? Or perhaps maybe the first commandment is to love yourself, love your God, love your neighbor. Those are the top 3. Scriptures actually say, love God, then love your neighbor, and love yourself as your neighbor, or love your neighbor as yourself. It goes both ways. So fall in love with yourself today and know that you are enough. And here's my hug to you. Ah, it feels so good. The power of that human connection is real. And now we know why. But my grandmothers knew it all along. So really, it's not really new information. So I'm going to end the show the way I end every show, which is every night as you go to sleep, you repeat in your mind the phrase, every day in every way, I get better and better, repeated 10 times, 1 for each finger as your fingers touch the mattress and you prepare for sleep. In this way, you reprogram your brain. And while you sleep, your brain is working for you, trying to figure out how you can be better tomorrow than today. Now, let's say you had a really bad day and you go to bed and you're thinking about that really bad day. And now, while you sleep, that really bad day is downloaded into your brain and it goes into a file named How to Have a Bad Day. And you compound that over time, and that equals many good, many bad days and many bad years and a really crappy life. But just by changing that word, that phrase, you still have that very same bad day. But now you go to bed and you're thinking, every day in every way, I get better and better. And your brain starts working for you because that's what our brains love to do is solve problems. And now you've given it a problem to solve, which is how can I be better tomorrow than today? And you don't even need to worry about it. You just can breathe, give yourself a hug, sleep, and repeat in your mind the phrase, every day in every way, I get better and better. Repeated 10 times, one for each finger as your fingers touch the mattress and you prepare for sleep. Compound that over time, and that equals many good days, many good weeks, months, years, and an amazing life. And 20 years from now, you will look back at this day and be grateful that you took the time to rewire your brain, start a new connection, start a new pattern, and get better every day. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. You can always hug a tree. It does the same.